Welcome to Both Sides of the Bed with Kimisha. Today's episode is one we all know very well, including myself, and we feel very deeply. We're talking about grief. Not just the loss of a loved one, but the loss of dreams, identities, and the version of ourselves we had to say goodbye to. Our subtitle says it all: loss, loneliness, and the life that keeps moving anyway. We'll be exploring how to process those heavy moments, how to cope when the world doesn't slow down, and how to honor your grief in a way that's true to you. And I'm so glad to have my returning guest and therapist, Noelle Elia, here with me for this conversation. Before we start, I have to say, I am not a therapist or a life coach. I'm just here to have real conversations, share my perspective, and hopefully give you space to reflect on how your own journey carries you through. Okay? All right, let's dive in. Noelle, thank you so much for being here again.
Kamesha, thanks for having me.
Yes, this episode for me, it's a little personal, as you know. I lost a brother
Yes.
who's a cousin to me, but we grew like siblings. So grief for me took me in a whirlwind of emotions that I never thought I can imagine, experience, or even now express. Because every day to me is a whirlwind. I get up. Some days I can't identify myself. So today, this episode for me is personal. So I want to thank you again for being here.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so I want to ask you, how do you define grief beyond the loss of a loved one? Because I think a lot of people only see it one way.
Yes. You know, I thought about the fact that a lot of people do see it that way. And I want to start by just, picking out a couple of passages from a book that is just so classic. It's probably 30 years old. It's called Necessary Losses. And it refers to just life. Here's a couple of statements. The loves, illusions, dependencies, and impossible expectations that all of us have to give up in order to grow.
Wow.
Example, that what hurts us cannot always be kissed and made better. That we will have to accept in other people and in ourselves the mingling of love with hate, of good with bad. That there are flaws in every human connection. And this statement I love the most. It says, loss is the price we pay for loving and living.
Yes.
That everything is a trade-off. Because of your love for your brother and your connection, that's why it hurts so much, and that's why it requires so much healing.
Yes.
Were it a less important relationship or intimate relationship, it would not have affected you this way. The fact is it has transformed you.
Yes.
So that's an example of how earlier you said how you're different after a loss of that magnitude.
Yes.
We're different after all our losses. Something that's pretty heavy, and as a therapist, I believe this. A lot of people think this is taking it too far, but I don't. Our very birth, our very exit from the womb is our first loss.
Oh, wow.
And although we don't remember it, analysts feel like we never forget it.
Why?
Because it is a shocking,
Okay.
traumatic experience to come out of the womb into the world.
Okay. It's like into the unknown.
Well, of course, yes. So life is just filled with, every day there's a loss, because every day you're
I'm
a
shedding
year
death.
older
Yes.
and you're closer to death,
Yes.
which is the ultimate loss that people try to deny in all kinds of ways.
But it's the one thing that we're guaranteed.
Yes, yes. And you know what? It's unhealthy
Yeah.
to delve on it and think about it every day. Native Americans say that it's always right here. And it's good to know it, but not to allow yourself to be obsessed with it, because you want to appreciate the life you have now. But think about it. Imagine if the human being was not mortal. What if we were immortal? Our whole life would be different. We would do
Correct.
everything
Yes.
differently.
You're right, because have you noticed that when someone get a diagnosis from a doctor for 6 months to live, everything changes.
Everything changes.
You know, they want to go on vacation, they want to spend the money that they have saved. So you are right, it does change your perspective when that happens. Oh wow. So that leads me to my next question. How does grief change? So when you're running on mourning, like a version of yourself or your life, because that type of grief can feel invisible to others, how does that grief change when we're mourning? Because for me, I I've lived my life before with so much purpose, but after he passed, my purpose became stronger. I felt like I no longer want to waste a moment, because I had someone I had to not live up to, but make proud. So, how does that change for the mourning process?
That's very interesting that you say that, because one of the things that can happen to people when there's a traumatic loss is they lose their meaning in life, and they lose their purpose, and they can even become depressed. What you're saying is it sort of catapulted you into embracing life even more.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by your question. When you're saying how does...
So, when you're going through grief, so for me, as I said, how does the grief change when you're mourning? It's like the version of yourself is gone. So, how does that changes, per se, someone from the outside understanding, like, I'm mourning? How does my actions might look to that person that don't understand that, you know what, she's mourning, she's going through grief? Because everyone will say to you, I'm so sorry for your loss, I understand, you know, I lost a mother, a friend, but the loss is never the same, because
it's never the same,
because our relationship with that person is different. So basically, how does grief change when you're mourning a version of yourself? So a version of myself that I no longer know, how does that changes
well,
in life?
the thing about a loss is that we never get over losses. In fact, the goal is not to get over it. The goal is to, in a healthy way, integrate the loss into your personhood, so that, which changes you, because now you're integrating something new and different and powerful into your personality. So you're not going to be the exact same. You could be a better version.
Yes.
And for people who really embrace the loss as a learning experience, you're a better version after it. If you embrace it as, why me? How could God let this happen? You're not going to be a better version.
Not me. I look at it as God doesn't make, that's just my perspective and my belief. I believe God doesn't make mistakes, and everything in life teaches you something. Because I'll say to my kids, when good things are happening in your life, you never stop and say, oh God, why is this good thing happening to me? Why are you giving all this gifts? We never do it. So when bad things are happening, or per se things that I won't even call them bad things, I'll just call it redirection and just life. When those things happen, I have to stop and say, you know what, God, you know, this is my turn. You know, we're going to have good days, bad days. Everybody can't have good days.
Right.
It rains someday, it's thunderstorms someday,
Right.
and each of those moments prepares us for something else. I don't think we are ever ready for grief until it happened.
Correct.
Because for me, there morning I wake up and it's like my heart remembers before my head, and I'll just wake up in like a pool of tears. Like, why am I crying? Because my body is
Oh,
reacting.
you're bringing up something so important. And just to stick with the idea of losing someone through death,
Yeah.
anniversary dates, there have been times in my own life when, out of the blue, I feel like, why am I in such a funk? And then maybe 2 days later, I remember, oh my goodness, my dad died on that date.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Our body
Remembers.
also holds memory.
Yes.
So our body remembers. Anniversary dates can really kick you around.
Yes.
It's good to be sort of aware if you possibly can be.
I'm always aware because I try to do on those days. I try to do stuff that reminds me,
That's
and
good.
not only reminds me, celebrate him.
Yes.
Because he was just the life of the party.
Yes.
So for me, wow,
Yes.
that one is heavy. I think celebrating him from time to time gives me closure.
Yes.
It's not everyone's like, oh my God, I'm doing it for them. No,
He
I'm
lives
doing it
on.
for me. Yes,
He lives on.
through my memories and everything in my heart.
Yes. And in who you are.
Yeah.
Because being in relationship with him is part of what has developed your personality.
Yes.
These people live on. There's no question. Now, earlier you said, what about grief aside from a death?
Yeah.
Well, moving,
Mm-hmm.
even if you want to.
Yes.
It depends. You might have a history in that home.
Yes.
Certainly divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major. These are losses. There are actually sending your children off to college.
That's yes.
There's
a
so
different
many
relief.
things. A lot of these things. There are losses that actually have a positive tinge.
Yes.
Send your kid off to college. It's a positive thing.
But it's still.
But it's still a change in
Yes.
your life. It's a different part of your life, and a different part of the life cycle, and it's still something that you might have some grief about. Now, there's also something, and this is really important. I think this happens to people. There's a term that I became familiar with when I was working with people living with AIDS, and it's called disenfranchised grief. Certain things where it's not culturally sanctioned to grieve certain things because people think that, they caused it themselves, they were using IV drugs or whatever. So,
You shouldn't grieve them. Okay.
Exactly.
But that's not possible.
Well,
Because when you love someone, whatever you do to yourself, it still affects the person that loves you.
yes,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. But I think we do disenfranchise how long grief should take, Kamesha, in our culture. The United States is very bad with grief.
I think the world moves
We
fast.
wrap it up in a couple of days.
Yes, people forget quickly.
You don't even get a lot of time off from work.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. What are some healthy ways to cope when the world keeps moving around you? It's like everyone is speeding ahead. And as for me, when that happened, I took some time off, but not a lot of people have the opportunity to take the time off.
That's right.
Because we all process that differently. I am still processing every single day, but I don't feel the world cares. So, you just have to cope. So what are some healthy coping mechanism that you would suggest?
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I feel personally like it's very important to have some kind of spiritual grounding. Now, I say spiritual, you could say religious, whatever you want to say. We need to hang on to something that's bigger than all of it. Some people call it prayer, some people call it, spirit,
Devotion.
that's one thing. That's one thing. And some people don't have that and they've never developed it. And in that case, you definitely want to be around people who can respect and understand your mourning.
Yes.
Now there might be some people in your life that do. Hopefully there are. Certainly we know about all the unhealthy ways to cope. Drowning yourself in drugs or other, behaviors.
True. My coping was a little different. I call it a little dangerous because I didn't stop to mourn. I kept going.
Oh, a lot of people will do that. They'll be
Yes.
frenetically busy.
Yes, I was busy. I was helping everyone. I was developing new programs, developing new initiative, anything to keep my mind off processing that he's gone. But I remember one day I was just shopping in BJ's and just walking through the aisle and picking up stuff. And then a song came on and it says, it's been a long day without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. And that was it.
That was it.
I lost it. I couldn't stop crying.
Actually,
couldn't
I'd say
finish
you
my
found it,
shopping.
Kamesha.
Okay.
And let me say something about music.
Yeah.
There is no question that it will help you. Some people say, "Oh, why are you playing them?" Sometimes, in a situation like that, I will deliberately play songs that will pull the tears out of me,
Well,
because I tend to intellectualize things. But if I hear that song,
yes.
I'm letting go.
So sometimes you think just. I had someone actually say to me, stop playing those sad songs because, and I was like,
They're helping you to process it.
Yeah, at the time, I was able to cry. I was able to let it out. But again, everyone copes differently because I said, for me, I dealt with it for a couple of days, but I started his burial, the funeral, everything. I just was going, thinking of ways to memorialize him. Like it was just, I kept going. But when I stopped, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Ton of bricks. The other thing is this, Kamesha. The nature of a death is very relevant to the amount of grief, to the length of grief. It's very important. I mean, if someone is murdered or there's a suicide, this is a different kind of death than a 90-year-old who had a stroke and died a week later. First of all, I mean, age is relevant. Relationship is relevant. Your brother, a child, the death of a child. These things.
Yes.
In fact, people have told me, I happen to unfortunately know a number of people who have lost children when they were little. And too many. It's just, that's happens to be people I know. People will avoid them because that's a disenfranchised death. How dare you have your kid die? People, it's hard to be around someone who's experienced that. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. So those people can feel like pariahs themselves, which makes it even worse. That doesn't always happen, but it's not unusual if there's a death that has some kind of a violence to it, that people will even, pull away. But that's also a harder death to cope with.
Yes, the difference. So that leads me to my next question about expectations. And we tapped on it a little bit earlier. But how do cultural or a family norm play a part in what allows us to grieve? Because you have some people that expect, like, especially men. Especially
You're
men.
talking about
They're
now
thinking
gender differences.
Gender differences as well, because even in men, if something happened, everyone is expecting you're supposed to be tough. So how do cultural and family norm affect how we're allowed to grieve?
Right. Okay. So obviously gender socialization affects everything. And it certainly affects the grief process. Yes, what you just said.
Yes.
It's funny. I certainly believe that I'm a feminist, but I also think that men are shackled by these terrible rules.
Yes.
Frankly, they're not as liberated sometimes around the emotional life at all. They're not allowed
They're perceived as being weak.
Yeah, which is just a tragedy.
Sad.
But cultural expectations, that's very interesting because you will notice even in just groups of people, African Americans, Italians, Irish, German, people grieve differently in those cultures. So not to get into each culture, I can speak to my own Italian American culture. People are allowed to, cry at wakes and funerals. You're not banished from doing that, even men. Men in my culture can even kiss each other.
Okay.
It's not, a weird thing.
In my culture, no.
Okay.
In Jamaican culture, no.
Exactly.
Which is, you're right. Even Italians, they kiss on the cheek. We don't do that.
Yes. Yes. So very much, it really does depend very much on culture and gender.
Okay.
Absolutely. And American culture is different than culture in other countries
Yes.
around these things.
Okay. So this is a big one for me. What is the difference between moving forward
Mm.
and getting over it? Because I believe you never truly get over certain losses, but what is the difference between just moving forward and getting over what happened? So I'm not living in that moment constantly.
That's, yes. And sometimes one of the struggles that people have, Kamesha, is if I'm not living in that moment constantly, if I'm not continuing to be burdened by the death of this person I love so much, does it mean that I forgot about them? Does it mean that I don't care? No. That person, I assume,
Yes.
would want you to embrace your life and go on. You're never going to forget it because now it's integrated into who you are.
Yes.
So if you're not paying the same attention to it that you did in the first 2 years, it doesn't mean that you have moved away from the love.
Yes.
It means that you've moved on with your life,
Yes.
not wanting to be quite as shackled by that loss. My belief is that these people wouldn't want you to be. The people who died. I don't. First of all, I believe they're still here in a way. The soul, the spirit, never dies, so they're around. They don't want you to be ruining your life because of their death. I don't believe they would.
No, I don't think so. And that comes to my next point. How can, when grief resurface, because it does all the time, how can we handle that? Because as I said, for me, some days I'll be good, especially even starting this podcast. I started seeing his birthday numbers. And we all, different cultures, we believe, oh, that number or a butterfly
Yes.
is this person.
Yes.
But how can, when grief resurface, how do we handle that? How can we make sure we're being fair to ourselves? Because sometimes, for me, it will hit me in the morning, and then sometimes it ruins my day. I don't want to get up.
Okay.
I don't want to function.
Right.
And then I have to stop and go, oh my God, I have kids. I have to be there for my husband. I have business. You know, other people, what advice would you give them about how to handle when it hits them years after going through that loss?
Well, I'll say this. We probably shouldn't be surprised that it hits us
Okay.
years after.
Okay.
We don't want to have an expectation that we're done. So, you know, in a way, if you get up and you're feeling that way, it would be wonderful if you could take care of yourself and honor it.
Yes.
I realize you may have to still take care of your obligations,
Yes.
but it would also be very fair to say, you know what, today I'm going to take care of my obligations because I have to, but I'm not going to push myself and do more extra because I want. Now you're getting into self-compassion, which is very important. It doesn't mean that you're cutting yourself a break, you're just going to be lazy. It means that you have compassion for what you're experiencing. You didn't expect to wake up to that, but you did.
But what happened when you least expect it? Like out of the blue.
Well,
Because you're just going about your day. Say you wake up great. I woke up great. Everything is
and
going.
then it hits you
and
later.
then it just hits you while you're driving. What happens then?
Well, you may have to pull over, but you want to be safe on the road,
Yeah.
and then you want to do whatever you can for the rest of that day to honor it.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not going to last.
Wow. Okay. For me, what helped me a lot was the people around me and my community. That played a role because when I felt like I couldn't cope, I would get a text message, especially from my beautiful friend Kim Martelli. I'll get a text message like I'm thinking about you today. That meant everything to me. Or, you know, let's go on a walk, or let's just have dinner, or let's just talk about the happy moments, or just let's sit. So what does community or connection play in the grieving process? And can it make the difference between staying stuck and finding the light again? Because for me, it was people.
Oh, there's no question about it, Kamisha. Fortunately, you have friends like Kim who
Yes.
clearly understood what you were going through.
Yes, she also had a loss, so it was similar.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, yes, it's very important who we're around in those situations. And the fact that you have friends and community that understand, it's major. We can't go through life alone, let alone these hard times. Yes, it's very, very important. Now, you're bringing up something important because there are people who have a lot of loss and they don't have that in place. And that can create, well, it can create addictions, it can create bitterness, it can create an early death for yourself
Oh, wow.
because there's such a thing as a broken heart and it's real.
Yes, that is true. Because at that moment, it's like I felt my heart shattered. I now walk around and said my heart has been broken. Because it will never be the same. That feeling, the person I was before, I'm no longer that person. I'm different. I look at life different. I look at life a different perspective. And again, I'm more purposeful than I was before. And not only that, I live my life in a way of honoring. Like if you were here, how would you live your life?
Yes.
So that's what I do. Everyone is different, but that's what gets me by
Yes.
each day. And
Yes.
I recommend everyone do what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel good about yourself and your purpose. My next question, and my last question. What do you wish people knew about grief? Like, what will you tell the world? Because so many people think grief is just death. Grief is not just death. As you touched on it earlier, it's sending a kid to college, a change in circumstances. Grief is so many things. Grief is losing a friend. Like I've grieved losing people because
Of course.
grief is basically losing things you didn't think you was going to lose at that moment.
Right, right.
So what would you tell the world? What do you wish they knew about grief? And also that they give themselves grace during each process, whether it's sending kids to college, losing a friend, a change of scenery. What would you say?
Well, yes, I love the word grace. It goes along with the word compassion. Give yourself compassion and grace. I think what I would want people to know is that, again, from the instant that we are born onto the planet, we're losing.
Yes.
We're also gaining, but we're gaining through the losses. I mean, that's what grows us into full human beings, being able to handle the changes, the concept of impermanence, which is a Buddhist concept, that everything changes all the time. Nothing stays the same. We want it to, but it's not the way life works. There's an expression in the AA rooms, Alcoholics Anonymous, that people have to live life on life's terms, not on the terms we like. We have to live on life's terms, and life's terms includes major loss. It also includes a lot of joy. So it's both.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you, not just for being here, but when Kadeem died, you helped me a lot. And I remember one phrase you said to me, and that helped me every single day going forward. Because so many of us ask ourselves, it depends on the type of death. Whether it's traumatic, every death is traumatic, but the tragedy of his death was more, oh God. I don't want to really go into it because I don't want to break down. But you helped me so much.
Okay.
And you said, Kamisha, I want you to understand, because I kept fighting with what I could have done to change that circumstances.
Yes, I
what
remember
could
this
have
now that you're
done.
mentioning it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to say, and I blamed myself a minute because I said, if I was just there for that day.
That's right.
And you said, Kamisha, if it wasn't today, if it's not next week, it would have been the following week. It would have been the following month. And I had to sit and process, because so many of us blame ourselves. If you lose a kid, oh my God, if I didn't give him that car keys, You know, if I had him come home early,
That's
if
right.
I lose a parent, if I had checked on them earlier, you know, we blame ourselves and we find so many different scenarios on how we could have changed that person. But you helped me understand it wasn't my fault.
That's
And I
right.
think that was big because I had to get over that because I felt like I had to protect him. I felt like I failed.
Yes, I understand.
And you let me know you didn't fail.
Not at all, not at all. And let me thank you, Kamesha, for telling me. And the other thing is this: what you were engaged in there
Yes.
is a psychological term that we use called undoing. When something that drastic happens, we want to undo it, and we come up with all kinds of stuff. But it's only natural, and it takes a while for that to sort of peter out,
Yes.
to stop the self blame.
Okay. Wow. Well, wow. That was beautiful, Noelle.
Thank you.
We are going to be closing out. And I just want to say, Noelle, thank you for being here and for helping us unpack something that touches every life in one way or another. If you're listening right now and you're in a season of grief, I want you to know you're not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your process is yours. And it's okay if you're not over it. If this conversation gives you comfort or insight, please subscribe to Both Sides of the Bed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Share this episode with someone who might need to hear these words today. And as always, please remember, I am not a therapist or a life coach. I'm just here to hold space for real, honest, and healing conversation. Until next time, give yourself grace, honor your feelings, and take it one day at a time. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Noelle. This was beautiful.